Let's talk about Philip Zelikow, the executive director of the 9/11 Commission. First, tell us how it was formed, and then his control of the commission.
The commission was formed by a law passed in Congress in 2002 after long and very tortured debate. It was a 10-member panel, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans. The only person for the commission chosen by the White House was the chairman. Initially Henry Kissinger. Kissinger stepped down and he was replaced by Tom Kean, the governor of New Jersey. Democratic leaders in the House and Senate chose their 5 representatives. Early on, after Governor Kean came on board, there was a search for an executive director, somebody to run the investigation on a day-to-day basis. There's a polite fiction in Washington that the reports of blue ribbon commissions are written by the blue ribbon commissioners. Well, that's not usually the case. They're usually written by a professional staff led by a congressional researcher or a scholar. In this case, Kean and Hamilton came across the resume quite early on of Philip Zelikow, a very well-respected historian at the University of Virginia. They contact him, and Zelikow agrees to come on board.
And he had served on the Blue Ribbon Commission investigating the 2000 vote that got Bush selected.
Exactly, and he had earned the praise of both Republicans and Democrats on that commission. It's one of the commissioners from the Electoral Reform Commission who joins the 9/11 Commission and forwards Zelikow's name to Kean and Hamilton. And as I say, Zelikow comes on board quite early.
You talk about in your book the commission that's just being released this week, just being released today, Zelikow's secret relationship with Karl Rove. He's this week becoming a commentator on Fox News, but much more relevant was his top status within the White House, top advisor to President Bush.
Well, what I can tell you is that in 2003, Karl Rove called Zelikow a number of times at the commission. We know this because there are phone logs recording Rove's calls in. Now, Zelikow had a lot of ties to the Bush administration, and that was known to some degree when he signed on to the investigation. And he had assured the commission that he would do his best to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest and would cut off most of these ties with his friends in the White House and elsewhere. It becomes known on the commission staff in 2003 that despite these promises, Zelikow is having conversations with, of all people, Karl Rove. And this creates, as you might imagine, a huge amount of alarm and suspicion on the commission staff. You know, what is the executive director of the 9/11 Commission doing talking to Karl Rove? Now, Rove's people at the White House, you know, his friends and allies there, and Zelikow insist that this was completely innocent, and that this involved Zelikow's work at the University of Virginia. And indeed, Zelikow's work at the University of Virginia centered around presidential histories. So Karl Rove is somebody he would have normally at the university had some sort of contact with, I assume. And there's a odd development thereafter, which is Zelikow calls in his secretary, shuts the door, and informs her that she is no longer to keep phone logs of his contacts with the White House. The secretary is alarmed by this, worries that she's being asked to do something improper, and then contacts the chief lawyer for the commission to alert him to what's happened. As I say, this whole sequence creates a great alarm and a great suspicion about what Zelikow is up to.
We're talking to Philip Shenon. His book has just come out. It's called The Commission. His relationship, Philip Zelikow's relationship with Condaleeza Rice, how far back does it go, and what does it mean for the ultimate report that comes out?
Well, they have a relationship that goes way back. They were both members of the National Security Council staff in the first Bush administration, Bush 41. They formed a close friendship at that point. After that presidency, Zelikow goes off to Harvard and Rice returns to Stanford, yet they stay in touch and they write a book together about German reunification. After President Bush, the 43, enters the White House. He sets up a transition team for the National Security Council at Rice's recommendation, and Rice tasks Zelikow to join the transition team, specifically with responsibility for reviewing counterterrorism operations at the White House. Now, some of this was known at the time of Zelikow's hiring. I think the question is how much of that was known. And of course, Rice was at the heart of the 9/11 Commission investigation. It was her actions in the spring and summer of 2001 that were among the most important subjects for investigation by the 9/11 Commission, yet the commission was being run on a day-to-day basis by somebody who was undeniably a very close friend of hers.